If we talk about the biggest draws in the sport of boxing, we think Floyd Mayweather, we think Manny Pacquiao, we maybe think Vladimir Klitschko, perhaps Miguel Cotto. What do those guys have in common? Advanced age. There's not too many miles left on the clock. They're all in the autumn of their careers. Even if we look at the UK scene, who's the biggest name in boxing right now? Well, be the likes of Carl Frost, David Haye. Again, guys who are coming towards the end of their careers. Who's the person who's most likely to take over their mantle on a global footing? In my eyes, it's Saul Canelo Alvarez. He's got a following. He's got ability. He's involved in very, very fan-friendly fights. Most importantly, the package that comes with Canelo. The way he looks. He's got like this rock star image and personality. He's got the capability of being sensational in the boxing world. I actually think with Canelo, however, despite all that potential, and despite the fact that he is the obvious choice to take over the mantle of the guys that I've just mentioned, he's facing quite a major problem. And that problem is, who is he going to fight in the next 2 or 3 years? Let's look at it this way. He's already fought the pound for pound number one in the sport. Now that fight was so one-sided that there aren't calls for a rematch. I don't think there's too many people out there who want to see Floyd Canelo 2. There's more of a chance of Floyd rematching guys like Miguel Cotto, etc. Now, who else can Canelo fight? Realistically, I don't see a Manny Pacquiao fight happening. Miguel Cotto is the obvious choice, but as we understand it, Team Canelo have offered Cotto the fight twice, and on both occasions there's been reason for Cotto not to take that fight. Perhaps the time and the opportunity for that fight has already gone away. Now I think the difficulty with Canelo is if we factor out Cotto, Mayweather, Pacquiao, who does he fight? This is a guy who tends to fight at catchweights now. Regularly he weighs in at 155. He seems to have outgrown light middleweight. Now, at light middleweight, who are the top performers? There's guys like Erislandy Lara. There's guys like Austin Trout. But Canelo's already been there. He's already fought those guys. Neither of those are massive names outside of the boxing hardcore. And on both occasions, Canelo could have lost. They were controversial endings. Is Canelo really going to risk taking a loss for such low reward? I would imagine that a fight against Austin Trout isn't the sort of payday, isn't the sort of public image type fight that Canelo's aiming for. So for me, it's highly debatable whether he's going to go there again. Now, who else is there at light middleweight? There's James Kirkland, who he's fighting next. In my eyes, Kirkland is a guy who's been inactive. Kirkland is a guy without huge technical ability. And in my eyes, that's going to fall right into Canelo's hands. But let's look at other options. You've got the Charlo brothers. You've got Demetrius Andrade. These are decent fighters. These are good youngsters. But similarly to Austin Trout, similarly to Erislandy Lara, they fall into the category of not having enough risk-reward. These guys don't bring huge swathes of casual fans. They don't bring huge money to the equation. Yet they're really tough fighters to beat. So I think Canelo's in a difficult spot. Because I think he's too small, he's too big for light middleweight. But at the same time I question whether he's big enough for middleweight. I mean, let's remember, when he weighed in with Floyd Mayweather, Floyd was taller than him. Does this guy really have the reins to fight in middleweight? Will his power, which is undeniable at light middleweight, transcend up against much bigger men? Guys like Peter Quillen, be massive next to Canelo Alvarez. Real size difference would be noticeable there. So I think the difficulty for Canelo is there aren't the glamour fights at light middleweight. He'd have to kill himself to get down to that weight for fights that aren't really going to create huge revenue. So I think he's going to be forced in the direction of middleweight. Now at middleweight, there are guys he could fight. You've got the winner of Quillan Lee. That would be a big fight. The obvious name, the elephant in the room if you like, is Gennady Golovkin. The difficulty is, with Canelo being a much smaller man, how would he cope in a fight when not only is his power no longer as relevant as he's used to, but he's up against someone who hits probably a lot harder than him. You've then got guys like Peter Quillen, guys who are boxers, and when that is in the equation, you have to factor in things like reach, range, height. Now, in my eyes, Canelo struggles against boxers. He got whitewashed by Floyd Mayweather. He lost, let's say, at least 5 rounds of each fight to Austin Trout and to Erislandy Lara. So how's he going to cope against a boxer like Peter Quillen, who also brings a size advantage, a weight advantage, a reach advantage to the equation? I think Canelo's in a really tough spot. I think he gets rid of Kirkland. I don't view that as a competitive fight, but I wonder where he goes next. For me, he'd have to kill himself to get down to light middleweight, and there just aren't names in that division to make it attractive. So I fear that Canelo could have to move up to middleweight. And my prediction at this stage is he'll probably get found out in doing so. Let's hope from a fan perspective we get fights like Canelo Quillen, Canelo Golovkin, maybe even Canelo Cotto, although I doubt that now. He's certainly got the potential to be involved in some interesting fights, but I question whether people genuinely believe he can win them at middleweight. Let me know your thoughts. I think this is an interesting one. Thanks for watching.